my goal is shared with the candidate's goal, right? Which is to help them find an amazing new job and opportunity at a great company that they feel valued and like they can bring their whole selves to work every day. What does this person need in their career, right? What are they looking for? Are they looking for growth? Are they looking for upward mobility? Are they looking to have an impact, right? What motivates them? There's a few areas that we focus on when it comes to building that really strong hiring experience to make sure candidates do have a world-class experience with us, right? One thing that I talk a lot about in our organization and with my recruiting team is communication and that proactivity in communication, in particular with candidates.
We are here with Beth Marceau, Director of Talent at Knox CRM, a performance management platform for residential property management, leasing teams, marketers, managers, and leadership. Knox made it to the list of best places to work in multifamily. And Beth has had extensive experience in recruitment, talent acquisition, and resume writing, and I'm excited to get her perspective on today. Beth, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, Lisa. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great to chat.
So could you just start by telling us a little bit more about Knox CRM, your role, and any previous experiences that led you to the role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been at Knox CRM for about 2 months now, so still pretty new. But yeah, what we do is we are a high-tech startup. We've been around for a number of years, and we are a SaaS-based CRM platform, right, for property management companies throughout the US. Prior to COVID, Knox CRM was predominantly in office in Seattle. But then, of course, like many companies, they went entirely remote with the onset of COVID, and we've been remote ever since. So I live on East Coast. Our headquarters is out in Pacific time, right on the West Coast. And we have people throughout the United States. So we do hire 100% remote, working from a home office, offer the work from home stipend, and all those other fun things. So that's a little bit about Knox CRM. In terms of me and my background, I have been in the talent acquisition recruitment space for 9 years now, hiring really across the board, software engineers and tech to legal counsel, marketing, customer service, sales. I mean, you pretty much name it, and I've hired for it.
And now, so Beth, in your career, you've looked over probably more than 50,000 resumes, you've had thousands of interviews, and you have some amazing hiring stats under your belt. What are some of your philosophies on recruitment that you believe resonate with prospective hires, and how has that developed for you over time?
Yeah. It's such an important question, I think, because like most recruiters, I think I started my career in staffing and then worked my way in-house, right? And I've been in-house for many years since. But really, my primary philosophies when it comes to recruiting is authenticity, right? Is building that trust, building that rapport, and being as transparent as I possibly can be, right? My goal is shared with the candidate's goal, right? Which is to help them find an amazing new job and opportunity at a great company that they feel valued and like they can bring their whole selves to work every day. I think that's so important. One of my main philosophies around transparency really ties into compensation too. I'm a very, very large advocate when it comes to compensation transparency and having those real honest conversations, right? About, what works, what doesn't, what does the data show us, and what do you need, right? In your next position. And I think having those real honest conversations makes a big difference.
I think, kind of as an extension of that question, what is your advice for hiring managers on what traits or skills they need to possess in order to really be able to resonate with prospective talent?
Kind of the same, right? It's that transparency. It's that openness. It's the ability to build a relationship with a candidate that is authentic, right? A little bit of vulnerability sprinkled in there, right? I think makes it a big difference. I always when I'm talking to my hiring managers, I always quote, my girl Brené Brown, right? When it comes to being vulnerable and being open, that just opens up a world of truth when it comes to not only hiring talent, but also retaining those folks as well, right? Like being your true self, building a culture and environment of belonging and inclusivity is so crucial. And I think those skills and those traits, when they are predominant in a hiring manager, candidates see that, right? People see that, and that connects with them, right? Because no one wants to work for a company where they don't feel like they're included or they don't belong. So I think those traits are really, really crucial when it comes to interviewing, as well as when it comes to just building that rapport and relationship with candidates that we're considering for our positions.
Absolutely. And I think that resonates complete with the fact that I think everyone has their radar up now for authenticity and for vulnerability. So I think that's a solid piece of advice. Now, we know that the hiring experience matters so much to candidates for obvious reasons. But on top of that, the onboarding experience matters to people a lot, right? Which might not always be as equally prioritized for companies, but it's often telling about the company, the employer brand, and how someone feels like they're ultimately going to get integrated into the culture of the company. What are some top 3 to 5 things that a company can do to create a robust hiring experience and a robust onboarding experience?
Yeah, it's so crucial, right, in today's world to be thinking of those two things, right? I'll start with hiring and then kind of jump into the onboarding side as well. But in my experience, when we are as a company, right, at any company that I've worked for, predominantly startups, there's a few areas that we focus on when it comes to building that really strong hiring experience to make sure candidates do have a world-class experience with us, right? I think the first is speed
Mhm.
in this market, right? We we have to be moving quickly as organizations, as hiring managers. We have to make decisions intentionally, and thoroughly, but quickly, because candidates are getting job offers
Mhm.
every day, all day, right? So in my experience, my goal is always to try to minimize the time to hire, right, as much as
Mhm.
possible. In today's world, at Knox CRM is a great example. We do a really great job of creating a very streamlined, thorough, expeditious interview process that gets candidates from the initial recruiter screen through to an offer in under 2 weeks. So we do it very quickly, right? But we really do it with a lot of intentionality as well, right? Make sure that it's the right, add to our team, but it's also the right opportunity long term for these new individuals that we're bringing into our organization. So I think having a lens for that and being cognizant of the time, right, that it takes to hire someone, is crucial, really, for the hiring experience for candidates and for the organization. Um, One thing that I talk a lot about in our organization and with my recruiting team is communication and that proactivity in communication, in particular with candidates. Um, it lends itself to what we've talked about already regarding authenticity and inclusivity, but being open and transparent and overly communicative with
Mhm.
candidates also makes a big difference, right? It builds that trust, it builds that rapport. Like I want you to be texting me,
Mhm.
I want to I want to, talk regularly because I genuinely want to help you find
Mhm.
that next, career journey.
Mhm.
Maybe that's not at Knox CRM, and that's okay. Maybe it's somewhere else, but like, let's talk through that together. And I'm here for you, and let's work through it. And I think that communication is huge, tying into transparency and communication, sharing benefits early on in the process. I've seen make a very significant difference in the candidate experience and the hiring experience overall. Um, Compensation, again, talking about compensation early and often, I think is important because unlike, selling, let's use a software platform, right? Unlike selling a software as a service, in hiring and recruiting, for organizations, our business are people, right? And people change and they're fluid. So talking about compensation regularly, and often, I think, is crucial as well. Talking about it with the candidate, and then really throughout the interview process, right, and the hiring experience for candidates specifically, it's from the company side, seeking to understand. I think
Mhm.
a very significant difference, right? What does this person need in their career, right?
Mhm.
What are they looking for? Are they looking for growth? Are they looking for upward mobility? Are they looking to have an impact, right? What motivates them? What gets someone out of bed in the morning? And do we align with that? If we do
Mhm.
align with that, fantastic. Let's, dive into it more and figure out, where that path is for you here. And again, have that honest and transparent conversation about what that could look like. So I think that's really what I think about and talk to my hiring managers and recruiting teams about when we think through the hiring experience. Onboarding, right, on the other side of this, the other side of the coin here, is just as important, right? I think a lot of the a lot of the experiences that I just mentioned for hiring transcend over to the onboarding side too. I think that over communication for onboarding, especially in a remote distributed environment, is crucial because we are not physically going into an office for our first day, right? We are going to our, home office or maybe a
Mhm.
local co-working space, and that's a much different experience than
Mhm.
going to an office and seeing everyone's beautiful faces and meeting people physically. So at Knox CRM, our team does a fantastic job of onboarding new hires. It's actually over the course of the first month. It's the first 30 days. There
Wow.
are onboarding meetings. You get
Wow.
to meet with every single department in our organization, and you're starting in a cohort. So you're not on an island, right? You're not alone. You're with a group of other folks, anywhere from sometimes as minimal as two, right? Upwards of,
Mhm.
I think when I started, I had a class of like 15 people that started on the same day as me. So, we're all talking in Slack. We're all in the same Zoom meetings. We're getting to know each other personally. We have our videos on, right? We can see each other. And that just lends itself to a much different experience, right? Than the physical in-person experience. So those are some of the learnings that I've found to work well, particularly for remote distributed companies when it comes to onboarding. Um, but even before you get to like the actual orientation, right? Before that, what's the communication? Do you know when your laptop is going to arrive at your house? Do you have the right tech setup? Do you have the right desk, right? So efficiently work from your home office. And all of those things tie into a successful onboarding experience and talking to your employer about what they offer, right? Is there a work from home stipend? Do you get some sort of office setup? What kinds of tech setup do you get? Are you a PC user? Are you a Mac user, right? What are your preferences? So all of those things really tie into a world-class onboarding experience. It's so crucial to retention.
I love that advice. It sounds like just you need to have a high emotional intelligence to be able to really draw out that level of comfortability, intentionality, conversation, knowing the right questions to ask, enough to make other people feel like the candidate feel like they can ask the right questions as well. And I love the fact that you guys have a 30-day onboarding process. And I think the cohort thing is also a really solid thing to highlight because some companies are struggling. Like, what do we do when everybody's remote? How do we make people feel comfortable? And I think that is a great starting point. So, I've had multiple conversations with people over the past week that have expressed that people and culture at work matters to the most to them when searching for new jobs. And obviously, compensation, all of that aside, when you have that equal compensation coming from multiple different companies, that deciding factor is the people and culture. And obviously, it can't be formulaic because every company is a little different. But as a starting point, talk to us about what it takes to create a culture that attracts top candidates in 2022 and what is kind of a starting expectation no matter what industry or company you're in.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely a hot topic, right? Because it is such a competitive market. I mean, we're seeing candidates go and accept an offer the same day we talk to them at the recruiter screen stage, right at the very beginning of our interview process. So yeah, how are we attracting, the people that we want to work for us, right? And then how are we building that culture in a transparent, authentic way too, right? So one of the many things that we talk about, at my current employer, Knox CRM, we have a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, right? And then there are subcommittees. And we talk about this, right? We talk about this pretty consistently around how are we attracting a diverse, unique population of individuals to want to work here. And it is challenging, right? We really need to be cognizant of what are the pictures that we're using, right, in our branding. How are we really showing the true inclusivity and belonging that we have in our culture? And I've experienced this with, the last two startups that I was at, prior to my current employer as well. It's a common conversation. It's a common theme when it comes specifically to diversity hiring and,
Mhm.
and attracting a wide range of different individuals that are unique, that bring different perspectives. So when it comes to talent attraction, and really focusing on showcasing your culture. I think there's a few things that I've done in my career that have been successful, right? Of course, this all ties into employer branding and talent marketing. So partnering with the marketing team, as a recruiter is crucial. Really empowering our hiring managers to post on social media, right? LinkedIn, Facebook, for engineers, Stack Overflow and GitHub, right? Posting in those repositories, about the culture, about why they work here, sharing our jobs, right? And casting a wider net, to truly show from different, people, right? What their experience is like and why we're hiring. A careers page, I think, is a huge factor in that, right? Really using inclusive pictures and language. We strive very, very hard to really ensure that we have inclusive language in our job description. So we use a great software system called Textio. There's a number of other free platforms out there, but Textio is fantastic. It really helps us to build out a job description that is truly inclusive. Of the different people out there. So that's tip of the iceberg. I could probably talk about, attracting your culture, probably for days. There's so much opportunity there. And I think really it starts with building a plan, right? Identifying your gaps, what's working for you as a business, what's not working for you as a business, and then coming up with a plan to improve and progress, right?
Yep.
And progress that employer brand.
And I would like to just highlight your comment on empower your marketing team and empower your hiring managers and make sure it's really best embedded within the company culture. Because there are a lot of companies that are like grasping at strings, not sure if they should get an outside company to figure out their employer branding and all of those things, when so often it's just be embedded within the ethos of the company. So I think that's some great piece of advice. Empower the people that are already there. So what are some of the biggest challenges? And I know you've already touched on this quite often throughout your responses, but what are some of the biggest challenges you believe are facing hiring managers today?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think everyone shares the same challenges and pains of finding people, right? It's when we're in this competitive of a market here in the United States, it's a struggle. It's a challenge, right? So my hiring managers are probably similar to just about every hiring manager in America right now. It's like, how are we finding the right people? How are we, as a recruiting team in a hiring manager partnership, building a strong pipeline of qualified candidates that are going to accept our offer, right? Because they do have, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to probably 4 or 5 other companies that they're seriously considering that they're probably going to get offers from as well. So how are we balancing that? Like, how are we as a recruiting function finding the right talent and bringing them into the interview process early and often, and supporting our hiring managers? So what I do a lot of the time with my hiring managers is think outside the box, right? Like, how are we going to build that pipeline? How are we going to, right, tying into attracting our culture, right? How are we going to attract the culture adds to our environment? And what are we going to do as a proactive approach to recruiting and then a reactive approach to recruiting? And so it's a challenge, right? And then I think on the flip side of that, another challenge that my hiring managers always face, more so now, is retention, right? We get these amazing people in the door, and then what are we doing to retain them? What are we doing to keep them engaged and excited and empower them to make their own decisions and to have an impact and to, again, feel included and truly, truly see the belonging that is within our culture? And I think that's one of the many challenges that many hiring managers face in today's world, especially in a remote environment. It's very easy to feel like you're on an island. So as a hiring manager and as an employee, right, there's a very large intentionality around that proactive communication and outreach, predominantly over Slack, right, or Zoom or phone, that needs to take place. That proactivity and communication and conversation makes a huge difference.
Beth, you have extensive experience in resume writing. So I would just love your perspective on what does resume writing in 2022 look like, maybe versus how it used to look?
Yeah, it's very exciting for starters. Right? I am one of those very odd individuals that deeply loves resume writing. It's so fun. So for context, right, I work with clients nationally, right? I'm on the East Coast, but my clients are scattered all throughout the United States. And I work with my resume writing clients 100% remote, as you would expect, right? We launch into a phone call, right? It's a quick call. It's usually 15, 20 minutes. We talk about their motivations, and what they're looking for in their career. And then we get into an asynchronous editing phase where we use Google Docs, we collaborate together in a document, and then I use all that information to create a brand new resume. So, back probably 10, 15, even 20 years ago, right, writing a resume was like a very in-person task, right? A very in-person action. I have some local career coach friends. I live in New Hampshire. I have some local career coaching friends here in New Hampshire that, still sometimes will meet with their clients in person. I think I met with a client, the last time I met in person with a client was probably 5-6 years ago. It's been a long time. You don't need to, right? To write a resume and like articulate your keywords and your career path and what you do exceptionally well can absolutely be done virtually. So for me, that's the biggest difference that I've seen when it comes to just the relationship in resume writing. As a writer with my clients, partners who are mostly mid to late career that are confidentially looking for a new job, right? So another area that is changed, I think, a lot is the introduction of really very, very sophisticated applicant tracking systems, right? So how are job seekers positioning their career, and then really how are they strategically writing their resume um, to get around the applicant tracking systems, to get in front of a human being. So I talk to my clients a lot about that, right? How we need to effectively position them and set them up for success if they are, cold applying to jobs, meaning going on to Google, going on to LinkedIn, finding a random job, applying to it, right, with their resume, and then waiting in the dark hole that is applications, right? Waiting for a response, right? And so how do we get through that, right? How do we get to the recruiter? So I partner with my clients a lot on those things as well, which again is different than it maybe used to be, right? And the process is different now for resume writing and positioning yourself effectively to get into the interview process.
And Beth, last question for you. What drives purpose and meaning for you at work?
Oh, goodness. Well, interestingly enough, I'm a very passionate individual. So we actually just did at Knox CRM, we did a strengths finder assessment last week. It was fantastic. I'm a sucker for a personality assessment, index, DISC, right? You know it, I love it. And every time I take one of those, it's impact. It always comes back as impact. And for me, what gets me out of the bed in the morning, what gets me excited, what gets my blood boiling is, what kind of impact can I have today? Whether that be an impact with the business I'm working for, an impact with my resume writing clients, right, and helping them find a new job, the impact that I have with hiring managers and educating them on the market and, what we're seeing and how we can strategically work together to find top talent. And then, of course, the most obvious, right, that impact on the candidate, right, helping them to come into our organization and find success, and then seeing them get promoted, right, over time in the organization. I think is that true satisfaction of like, this is the right home for them, right? They found their success here, and now they're flourishing in their career. And I think that for me is like the true full cycle of we're getting them in the door, right? My team gets them in the door. We're able to retain them. And like, that's where the true magic happens. So for me, my passion absolutely is working with people, having an impact and seeing the difference that, myself and my team can make in the world.
Beth, thank you so much for being on with us today. And thank you all for listening to Architects of Contemporary Hiring.